It's funny how you can spend years doing something without questioning it, until one day you do. That's what happened to me. I mean, who doesn't love their family? They're supposed to be your safe haven, right? But sometimes the people closest to you are also the ones who take advantage of you in ways you don't even realize until it's too late. Let me start at the beginning, or maybe not the beginning, because this story has roots that go way back before I was even born. My name is Eleanor Harper, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 24, a graphic designer with a penchant for overthinking and undercharging my clients. Life isn't perfect, but I've always prided myself on being dependable. Dependable, Ellie. Reliable Ellie, the girl who says yes when no one else will. And trust me, my family knows exactly how to capitalize on that. The breaking point came last Saturday. It wasn't some grand dramatic moment like in the movies where someone slams a door or throws a glass against the wall. No, it was quieter than that, more insidious. A conversation I overheard while standing outside my Aunt Carol's kitchen, holding a tray of cupcakes I'd baked for my cousin Lily's birthday party. I should have known something was off as soon as I walked into the house. There were balloons everywhere, pink and gold, naturally, and the smell of burnt sugar lingered in the air. Aunt Carol was running around like a headless chicken, yelling about napkins and tablecloths, while Uncle Greg sat on the couch scrolling through his phone like he hadn't heard her. Typical. Lily, meanwhile, was sprawled out on the floor playing with her Barbies, completely oblivious to the chaos around her. She looked up when she saw me and grinned, waving one of her dolls in greeting. "Ellie, you brought cupcakes." "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. Wouldn't miss it, but then I noticed something strange. Across the room, sitting cross-legged on the dining table, was my cousin Daniel. He was scrolling through Instagram, looking every bit the moody teenager he was. What struck me, though, wasn't his posture or his scowl. It was the wad of cash sticking out of his pocket. Cash I recognized immediately because it had been handed to him just moments earlier by Aunt Carol herself. "Here's your payment for babysitting last week," she'd said casually, pressing the bills into his hand. "You did such a great job keeping an eye on Lily." Payment? For babysitting? My stomach dropped. I stood there frozen, the tray of cupcakes suddenly feeling impossibly heavy in my hands. Payment. Babysitting. Those words echoed in my head like a broken record. Because if Daniel got paid for watching Lily, what did that make me? See, here's the thing. I'd been babysitting Lily since she was born. Every weekend, every holiday, every random Tuesday night when Aunt Carol decided she needed a break from parenting. I never complained, not once. Not when I missed out on plans with friends, not when I stayed up late helping Lily finish her homework, not even when I had to cancel dates because Aunt Carol forgot to mention she needed me until the last minute. And now, standing there listening to Aunt Carol praise Daniel for doing the exact same thing I'd done for years, for free, I felt something inside me snap. I didn't say anything at first. I couldn't. Instead, I plastered on a fake smile, set the cupcakes down, and excused myself to the bathroom. Once I was alone, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, trying to process what I'd just heard. Was I really that naive? That blind? How could I have gone all these years without realizing they were using me? When I finally emerged, the party was in full swing. Kids were running around screaming, adults were chatting loudly over plates of food, and Lily was showing off her new dollhouse to anyone who would listen. I found Aunt Carol in the kitchen, refilling punch cups, and approached her hesitantly. "Aunt Carol?" I started, my voice trembling slightly. "Can we talk for a second?" She turned to face me, eyebrows raised. "What is it, Ellie?" I faltered, suddenly unsure of how to phrase what I wanted to say. "I just heard you talking to Daniel earlier about paying him for babysitting." Her expression shifted instantly, from curiosity to mild irritation. "Oh, that. Yes, well, Daniel's older now. He needs spending money, so we thought it'd be good to compensate him for his time." But I swallowed hard, my cheeks burning. "What about me? I've been babysitting Lily for years. For free." There it was, the elephant in the room, finally out in the open. Aunt Carol blinked at me, clearly caught off guard. Then she sighed, setting the pitcher of punch down on the counter. "Ellie, sweetheart, your family. We assumed you didn't mind helping out. Besides, it's not like you ever asked for payment." That stopped me cold. She was right. I hadn't asked. But that didn't make it okay, did it? Before I could respond, she patted my shoulder awkwardly and changed the subject. "Anyway, why don't you go enjoy the party? You've done enough already." Enough. That word stuck with me long after I left the house that night. Enough babysitting, enough sacrificing my own life for theirs, enough letting them use me without a second thought. As I drove home, tears streaming down my face, I made a decision. From now on, things were going to change. The next morning, I woke up feeling different, like the world had tilted just slightly off its axis overnight. My room was quiet except for the faint hum of traffic outside my window, but inside my head, chaos. Pure, unfiltered chaos. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Aunt Carol over and over again. "Your family. We assumed you didn't mind helping out." Assumed. That word gnawed at me like a splinter under my skin, sharp, persistent. impossible to ignore. Did they really think I was okay with this? Or worse, did they not even stop to consider how I felt because I'd never said anything? Either way, it stung badly. I dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen where sunlight streamed through the blinds in golden stripes. Coffee first. Always coffee first when life feels like it's crumbling around you. As the machine gurgled to life, I leaned against the counter and scrolled through my phone, half-heartedly checking social media, and then it hit me. The irony. All those memes about setting boundaries and putting yourself first suddenly felt personal. How many times had I liked posts telling people to stand up for themselves, only to turn around and let my own family walk all over me? By the time my coffee was ready, I'd made up my mind. No more. Starting today, I was done being their doormat. Later that afternoon, I decided to call my best friend Mia. She's been my rock since high school, a loud, opinionated ball of energy, who doesn't hesitate to tell it like it is. If anyone could help me navigate this mess, it was her. "Hey girl," she answered on the second ring. "What's up?" "Everything," I groaned, flopping onto my couch. "You won't believe what happened." She paused. "Uh-oh, this sounds serious." Spill. So I told her everything. The cupcakes, the cash in Daniel's pocket, Aunt Carol's dismissive response. By the time I finished, Mia was practically vibrating with indignation. "Are you kidding me right now?" she exploded. "They seriously paid him and not you? After all the years you've been busting your ass for them?" "I know, right?" I buried my face in a throw pillow. "It's so messed up. And the worst part is, I don't even know where to start fixing it." "Well, first things first," Mia said firmly. "You need to set some boundaries, like hard ones. No more babysitting unless they pay you, period." "But what if they get mad?" I asked, chewing on my thumbnail nervously. "What if they think I'm selfish or ungrateful or whatever?" "Who cares?" she shot back. "You're allowed to say no, Ellie. You're allowed to take care of yourself. Besides, if they can't respect that, then screw 'em." Her words lingered in my mind long after we hung up. Screw 'em. Could I really do that? Could I stand up to my own family without feeling guilty? Monday rolled around and I found myself staring at my phone screen, debating whether or not to text Aunt Carol. Finally, I typed out a message. "Hey, Aunt Carol, just wanted to let you know I won't be able to babysit anymore unless we discuss compensation moving forward. Hope you understand." As soon as I hit send, my stomach twisted into knots. What if she thought I was being unreasonable? What if she guilt-tripped me into changing my mind? Her reply came faster than I expected. "Oh, Ellie, are you sure about this? You've always been such a big help." Translation: "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I clenched my jaw and responded, "I'm sure. It's nothing personal. It's just something I need to do for myself." There. It was done. Boundaries set. Now all I had to do was wait for the fallout. That evening, I went for a run to clear my head. Running has always been my go-to coping mechanism. It's meditative, exhausting, and gives me an excuse to avoid thinking too much. The crisp autumn air filled my lungs as I pounded the pavement, leaves crunching beneath my sneakers. But even running couldn't distract me from the sinking feeling in my gut. Family drama has a way of following you everywhere, doesn't it? When I got home, sweaty and breathless, my mom was waiting for me on the front porch. "Great, just what I needed." "Ellie," she said, her tone clipped. "Your aunt called me." "What's this nonsense about refusing to babysit?" "Nonsense." Of course she'd phrase it that way. "It's not nonsense, Mom," I replied, unlocking the door. "I'm just setting boundaries. I've been doing it for free for years, and honestly, it's not fair." Mom sighed heavily, following me inside. "Fair or not, that's what family does. We help each other out without expecting anything in return." "Yeah, well, maybe I don't want to do that anymore," I snapped, instantly regretting how harsh I sounded. She blinked at me, clearly taken aback. "Since when did you become so selfish?" Selfish. There it was, the word I'd been dreading. "I'm not being selfish," I insisted, though my voice wavered. "I'm just tired, Mom. Tired of giving and never getting anything back." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Mom shook her head and muttered something under her breath before walking away. The rest of the week passed in a blur of awkward silences and passive-aggressive comments from various relatives. Aunt Carol stopped texting me altogether, which hurt more than I cared to admit. Even Lily seemed distant during our brief phone calls, asking why I hadn't come over lately. But amidst the tension, something unexpected happened. I started feeling lighter, freer, like I'd finally shed a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Still, I couldn't shake the nagging doubt in the back of my mind. Was I doing the right thing? Would they ever forgive me? Only time would tell. I was starting to feel like I'd stepped into some alternate universe where everyone hated me. Okay, maybe hated is too strong a word, but it sure felt like it. Every text from my mom was laced with thinly veiled disappointment. Every conversation with Aunt Carol ended abruptly, like she couldn't wait to get off the phone. Even Lily stopped asking when I'd come over next, which broke my heart more than anything else. But the weirdest part? I wasn't backing down. For years, I'd been the reliable one, the person everyone could count on no matter what. And yeah, maybe that made me feel needed, but it also left me drained. Now, for the first time in forever, I had space to breathe, space to think about what I wanted instead of constantly bending over backward for everyone else. Still, it wasn't easy. Guilt gnawed at me like a persistent little monster whispering, "You're being selfish. You're letting them down." But every time those thoughts crept in, I reminded myself of Mia's words. Screw 'em. One Friday evening, I decided to treat myself to dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant, a cozy little spot tucked away in the corner of downtown. The air smelled like garlic bread and simmering tomato sauce, and soft jazz played in the background. It was exactly the kind of place that made you forget your problems, or at least pretend they didn't exist for a little while. I was halfway through my lasagna when someone slid into the chair across from me without asking. "Fancy seeing you here," said Daniel, flashing his signature smirk. Of all the people. In my family, Daniel was the last one I expected to run into. He was 2 years younger than me, perpetually brooding, and somehow managed to make even casual conversations feel like interrogations. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying and failing to hide my irritation. "Grabbing takeout," he replied, nodding toward the counter. "But then I saw you sitting here looking all moody. Figured I'd say hi." "Moody?" I raised an eyebrow. "Thanks." He shrugged, just calling it like I see it. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "So, how's everything going with the whole babysitting thing?" My fork clattered against my plate. Of course he'd bring that up. "It's fine," I said tersely. "Why do you care?" "I don't," he shot back quickly, though something about his tone suggested otherwise. "I just heard Mom talking about it. She's pissed." "Good," I muttered under my breath. Daniel frowned. "Wait, seriously? You're not even a little bit sorry?" "Nope." I stabbed a piece of lasagna with unnecessary force. "Why should I be? I did them a favor for years, for free, and they treated me like their personal nanny. Meanwhile, you waltz in once or twice and get paid like it's nothing." His expression shifted, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. For a second, he looked almost guilty. "That wasn't my idea, you know," he mumbled, staring at the tablecloth. "Mom offered me money. I didn't ask for it." "Well, lucky you," I snapped. "Must be nice having people actually appreciate your time." He flinched at that, and for a moment neither of us spoke. Then he sighed and ran a hand through his dark hair. "Look, Ellie, I get it, okay? You're mad. And honestly, you have every right to be. What they did to you sucks. But cutting them out completely? That's not gonna fix anything." "Oh, really?" I crossed my arms. "And what would you suggest, oh wise one?" "I don't know," he admitted. "Talk to them? Explain why you're upset instead of just shutting them out?" I stared at him, stunned. Was Daniel, the same Daniel who avoided family gatherings like the plague, actually giving me relationship advice? "You're unbelievable," I said finally, shaking my head. "Yeah. Well," he stood up, grabbing a paper bag from the counter. "Just think about it, okay? Family drama sucks, but running away doesn't make it better." With that, he turned and walked out, leaving me alone with my half-eaten lasagna and a million conflicting thoughts swirling in my head. I hadn't planned on coming here. It wasn't part of any grand strategy or carefully thought-out plan. I just needed answers. When she opened the door, her expression shifted, from surprise to wariness. "Ellie," she said cautiously, "what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you," I replied, stepping inside before she could protest. The living room was eerily quiet, save for the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Aunt Carol gestured for me to sit, but I shook my head. "I'm not staying long," I said firmly. "I just want to know why. Why did you pay Daniel and not me? Why did you assume I'd keep doing this for free?" She hesitated, clearly caught off guard by my directness. Then she sighed and sank onto the couch. "It's complicated," she began. "No, it's not," I interrupted. "Either you value my time or you don't. Which is it?" Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something other than irritation or guilt. Regret. "You're right," she admitted softly. "We should have compensated you. I guess we got used to having you around and forgot to consider how it might affect you." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, not because they were surprising, but because they confirmed everything I'd suspected. "I love you guys," I said, my voice trembling. "But loving someone means respecting them too, and for a long time, I didn't feel respected." Aunt Carol nodded slowly, tears pooling in her eyes. "I understand, and I'm sorry, Ellie, truly." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached out and took my hand. "We'll figure this out," she promised. together. As I walked back to my car, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't perfect, we still had a lot to work through, but it was a start. Maybe setting boundaries wasn't about pushing people away after all. Maybe it was about finding a way to stay connected without losing yourself in the process. You ever feel like life is just one big race? Not the metaphorical kind either. I'm talking about the real deal. Track spikes digging into rubber, muscles burning like wildfire, lungs screaming for air. That's my life. Has been since I was 12 years old, and my dad signed me up for track camp because he thought it'd toughen me up. Spoiler alert, it did. But toughness comes with a price tag, and mine has been written in sweat, tears, and more than a few sleepless nights wondering if all this pain is worth it. My name's Leo Martinez, and I'm a middle-distance runner. 800 meters, that sweet spot between sprinting and endurance running. It's brutal, honestly. 1 lap around the track feels manageable, but 2? That second lap is where the demons come out to play. And trust me, they're loud. Right now, though, the only thing louder than the voice in my head telling me to quit is the roar of the crowd at the state championships. This is it, the moment I've been training for all season, my senior year. Last chance to prove myself before college scouts decide whether or not I'm worth their time. I glance over at Coach Ramirez, who's pacing back and forth near the starting line like a caged tiger. His face is unreadable behind those mirrored sunglasses, but I know what he's thinking. Don't screw this up. Easier said than done. Next to me on the line is Carter Hayes, my teammate and rival. We've been neck and neck all season, trading. Wins like punches in a boxing match. He's faster than me off the blocks, but I've got better endurance. At least, that's what I keep telling myself. Truth is, Carter's got something I don't. Confidence. The guy walks around like he owns the damn track, and half the time he does. Ready to lose, Martinez? He mutters under his breath as we settle into our stances. Dream on, Hayes. I shoot back, forcing a smirk I don't quite feel. The starter raises the gun, and everything else fades away. The noise, the nerves, the pressure, it all dissolves into white noise. All that matters now is the sound of the shot and the burn in my legs as I explode forward. I stay tucked behind Carter, letting him take the lead while I conserve energy. My breathing is steady, my form tight. For once, I actually believe I might pull this off. But then comes the second lap. That's when things start falling apart. Carter surges ahead, his strides eating up the track like it owes him money. I try to match his pace, but my legs feel like lead, each step heavier than the last. The crowd's cheers blur together into a deafening wall of sound, and for a split second, I consider giving up, just letting Carter win and saving myself the agony, and then I hear her voice. Come on, Leo, you've got this. It's Mia, my best friend since freshman year and the unofficial team manager. She's standing near the finish line, waving her arms like a maniac, her curly hair bouncing with every shout. Something about the desperation in her voice snaps me out of my haze. I dig deep, pushing past the pain and focusing on the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground. One step, then another, then another. By the time I cross the finish line, I'm spent, completely wrecked. But when I glance at the scoreboard, I see my name flashing in second place. Carter won, of course, but I shaved 3 seconds off my personal best. Not bad for someone who almost gave up halfway through. After the race, Mia finds me sitting on a bench near the locker rooms, guzzling water like my life depends on it. You scared the crap out of me back there, she says, plopping down beside me. For a minute, I thought you were gonna stop. I almost did, I admit, wiping sweat from my forehead. Felt like my legs were gonna fall off. She laughs, nudging me with her elbow. Well, they didn't. And look at you, new PR. You should be celebrating, not sulking. I'm not sulking, I protest, though I totally am. I just hate losing. Yeah, well, welcome to the club, she replies dryly. Newsflash, nobody likes losing. But you can't let it define you, Leo. You ran an amazing race today. Be proud of that. Her words hit home, even if I don't want to admit it. Mia's always been good at calling me out when I need it most. Thanks, I mumble, offering her a small smile. What would I do without you? Probably collapse in a heap of self-pity, she teases, grinning. Now come on, let's go celebrate your shiny new PR with some pizza, my treat. Later that night, after stuffing my face with pepperoni slices and listening to Mia ramble about her latest crush, some guy named Ethan from the swim team, I find myself lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. Winning isn't everything. I get that, but it sure feels like it sometimes, especially when you've poured your heart and soul into something only to come up short. Still, tonight wasn't a total loss. I proved to myself that I could push through the pain, even when it felt impossible. And maybe that's enough, for now anyway. As I drift off to sleep, I make a silent promise to myself. Next time, I'll be ready. Next time, I won't just chase victory, I'll claim it. The morning after the state championships, I woke up feeling off, not sore. My muscles were used to that, but heavier, like there was an invisible weight pressing down on my chest. Winning second place should have been enough to boost my confidence, but instead, it left me restless. Second place wasn't failure, sure, but it also wasn't victory. And in a sport where milliseconds separate winners from losers, almost doesn't cut it. I dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen, where my dad was already sitting at the table with a cup of coffee and the sports section of the newspaper spread out in front of him. He glanced up as I entered, his expression unreadable behind his thick-rimmed glasses. "How'd you sleep?" he asked, folding the paper neatly and setting it aside. "Not great," I admitted, grabbing a bowl and pouring myself some cereal. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Rough race yesterday, huh?" I froze mid-bite, the spoon hovering, halfway to my mouth. Did he really just say that? "It wasn't rough," I shot back, maybe a little too defensively. "I ran a PR." "Yeah, but Carter still beat you," he replied matter-of-factly, like pointing out the sky is blue or water is wet. My jaw tightened. Of course. Leave it to Dad to zero in on the one thing I didn't want to talk about. "He's fast," I muttered, shoving another spoonful of cereal into my mouth to avoid saying anything else. "You've got endurance, that's your edge. You just need to use it smarter next time." Next time. There it was, the phrase that haunted every athlete who came in second. Next time. As if life gave infinite chances to get things right. "I know what I need to do," I snapped, standing abruptly and dumping my half-eaten cereal in the sink. "I don't need a lecture." Dad sighed, running a hand over his face. "Leo, I'm not trying to lecture you. I'm trying to help. But if you're gonna shut me out every time I try to give advice, then yeah, maybe I'll stop bothering." His words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because deep down I knew he was right. Or maybe because I hated how much I relied on his approval, even when I pretended not to care. "Whatever," I muttered, grabbing my keys off the counter. "I'm going for a run." Running has always been my escape, a way to clear my head and burn off frustration. Today was no different. The early morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine from the nearby woods. My feet pounded against the pavement in steady rhythm, each step grounding me just a little more. But even running couldn't drown out the voice in my head, the one whispering doubts and fears I didn't want to face. What if I never beat Carter? What if all this effort amounted to nothing? What if I wasn't good enough? By the time I looped back home, sweat dripping down my back and my legs trembling from exhaustion, I felt marginally better, at least physically. Mentally, still a mess. Later, that afternoon, Coach Ramirez called a team meeting to debrief the championship results. When I walked into the locker room, everyone was already gathered around, chatting animatedly about their performances. Carter, predictably, was holding court in the center of the group, recounting his winning strategy in excruciating detail. "And then I kicked it into high gear on the final stretch," he was saying, gesturing dramatically. "Honestly, I didn't think I had it in me, but once I saw Leo fading, I knew I could take it." Fading. The word stung more than it probably should have. Mia caught my eye from across the room and gave me a sympathetic smile. She knew better than anyone how much Carter's comments grated on me, even if they weren't meant maliciously. When Coach finally called us to order, the mood shifted instantly. He stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, his usual stern expression softening slightly as he addressed the team. "First off, congratulations to everyone for making it to states," he began. "It's no small feat, and you should all be proud of yourselves. That said, we've got work to do if we want to improve next season." His gaze lingered on me for a moment longer than necessary, before moving on to Carter. "Carter, excellent. Job securing first place. Your speed is unmatched, but remember, consistency is key. Don't let complacency creep in." Carter nodded, looking smug but attentive. "And Leo," Coach continued, turning back to me, "you showed incredible resilience out there. Your endurance is your greatest asset, but you need to focus on your mental game. Confidence, or lack thereof, can make or break a race." Confidence. There it was again. The one thing I couldn't seem to fake, no matter how hard I tried. After the meeting, Mia cornered me outside the locker room. "You okay?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She didn't look convinced, but she let it slide, for now. That evening, I decided to blow off steam by heading to the local skate park. It wasn't something I did often. I wasn't exactly known for being adventurous, but tonight I needed a distraction. To my surprise, Ethan, the swimmer Mia had been gushing about, was there, showing off tricks on his board with effortless grace. He spotted me watching and skated over, grinning. "What's up, track star?" he teased, flipping his board up onto its nose. "Not much," I replied, shrugging. "Just needed to get out of the house." "Mind if I join you?" he asked, nodding toward the empty bench nearby. We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching other skaters zip past. Eventually, Ethan broke the quiet. "So how's the post-race recovery going?" I groaned, rubbing my temples. "Don't ask. That bad, huh? Let's just say my dad thinks I need to use my endurance smarter, and my coach thinks I lack confidence." Meanwhile, Carter's busy gloating about how he crushed me in the final stretch. Ethan chuckled softly. "Sounds rough, but hey, losing sucks, no matter how you slice it." "Exactly," I exclaimed, throwing my hands up. "Why does everyone act like coming in second is some kind of moral failing? It's not," he said firmly. But here's the thing. You can't control what other people think. All you can do is focus on improving yourself. If you let their opinions dictate your worth, you'll drive yourself crazy. His words struck a chord deep inside me. For weeks, I'd been obsessing over what others thought. My dad, my coach, even Carter. But what if none of that mattered? What if the only person whose opinion truly counted was mine? Thanks, I said quietly, offering him a genuine smile for the first time all day. I needed to hear that. No problem, he replied, standing and grabbing his board. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a trick to perfect. Catch you later, Leo. As I watched him skate away, I realized something important. Maybe losing wasn't the end of the world. Maybe it was just the beginning of figuring out who I wanted to be, not just as an athlete, but as a person.